Before humans walked the earth, before dinosaurs ruled the land, there was a time when life itself seemed to sleep. For billions of years, Earth's oceans were quiet, empty of eyes, teeth, or movement. And then, in an instant of deep time, something happened. The silence shattered. Creatures with armor, claws, and vision burst into existence. It was the greatest biological awakening in history. The moment when evolution caught fire. This is the story of the Cambrian Explosion, the Big Bang of animal life. Long before the Cambrian Explosion, Earth was already billions of years old. Life had begun quietly, microscopic, hidden, and humble. For nearly 3 billion years, the planet belonged to bacteria and single-celled organisms. The seas shimmered with green mats of cyanobacteria, the oxygen makers that slowly transformed the atmosphere. Then came the Ediacaran period, about 600 million years ago, a mysterious era when strange, soft-bodied creatures appeared. They looked nothing like animals today, blobs, discs, fronds, peaceful, simple beings drifting in the currents. But these creatures lacked something. They had no eyes, no mouths, no hard parts. They lived quietly on the ocean floor, absorbing nutrients, and then they vanished. When the Ediacaran biota disappeared, it marked an ending and a beginning, because what followed was an explosion. Around 541 million years ago, during the Cambrian period, something extraordinary began. Fossil records show an unprecedented burst of diversity, new life forms appearing faster than ever before it. In just about 20 to 25 million years, and a blink in geological time, it almost every major animal group we know today emerged. Arthropods, mollusks, echinoderms, chordates, the ancestors of insects, worms, fish, even humans. It was a revolution in biology, the Big Bang of animal life. In places like Burgess Shale in Canada and Chengjiang in China, scientists have discovered perfectly preserved fossils, snapshots of this incredible moment in time. There we meet bizarre creatures like Anomalocaris, a meter-long predator with huge compound eyes and spiny appendages, slicing through trilobites, the armored insects of the sea. There's Opabinia with 5 eyes and a clawed proboscis, Hallucigenia, walking on spiky stilts, and Wiwaxia, covered in shimmering scales and blades. These alien-looking beings were the first complex ecosystems on Earth. Predator and prey, hunter and hunted. For the first time, the rules of survival began to take shape. But here lies the great mystery. Why now? What caused life to suddenly evolve with such complexity and speed? Scientists have proposed several fascinating theories, and the truth may lie in a combination of them all. Before the Cambrian, oxygen levels in the oceans were low. But around this time, oxygen began to rise dramatically, enough to fuel larger, more active creatures. With more oxygen came the power of movement, swimming, hunting, escaping. The stage was set for evolution to accelerate. Just before the Cambrian, Earth endured one of its harshest ice ages, a near-global freeze known as Snowball Earth. When the ice finally melted, it released minerals and nutrients into the oceans. Suddenly, life had resources to thrive, adapt, and evolve. The discovery of Hox's genes, master switches that control body plans, revealed how evolution could rapidly diversify. These genes allowed animals to develop organized structures, heads, tails, limbs, segments. It was like nature discovering blueprints and experimenting wildly. Once predators evolved, prey needed defenses, shells, spikes, armor. Each adaptation drove the other forward. This evolutionary arms race created endless new forms of life. As the seas filled with new niches, filter feeders, burrowers, swimmers, the web of life became interdependent. Diversity bred diversity. Together, these forces combined into a perfect storm, a biological eruption that changed the planet forever. The Cambrian seas were nothing like today's oceans. Continents were scattered and shallow seas covered much of the planet. There were no plants on land yet, just bare rock and early microbial crusts. Underwater, however, it was a different story. Forests of algae waved beneath the sunlight. Soft sediments teemed with worms, trilobites, and early crustaceans. In these ecosystems, life experimented boldly. Animals learned to crawl, swim, and burrow. Skeletons and shells appeared, not just for protection, but also as support for movement and strength. This was the birth of ecosystems, food chains, roles, and interactions. Each creature played a part in shaping the environment. Imagine sunlight filtering through ancient seas, illuminating glittering trilobite shells and darting predators. The ocean floor, once silent, now hummed with energy. It was a world both alien and familiar, a distant mirror of the one we live in today. For centuries, the Cambrian explosion was invisible to us, its evidence hidden deep within ancient rocks. That changed in 1909, when paleontologist Charles Doolittle Walcott discovered the Burgess Shale in the Canadian Rockies. There he found fossils so perfectly preserved that even their soft tissues, eyes, gills, muscles, remained visible. It was as if time itself had taken a photograph. The Burgess Shale revealed a secret Earth, a window into the very moment complexity was born. Later discoveries in China's Chengjiang and Greenland's Sirius Passet confirmed that this explosion was global. It wasn't a local event. It was planetary transformation. Each fossil told a story of innovation, the first legs, the first jaws, the first nervous systems. The architecture of life as we know it began here. The Cambrian explosion didn't just create new species, it created the framework of animal life. Every creature on Earth today, from butterflies to whales, from humans to coral, traces its ancestry to those early experiments. The appearance of eyes transformed evolution. Suddenly, creatures could see their world. Vision gave rise to motion, color, communication, and fear. The birth of predation sparked intelligence and strategy. Survival demanded awareness. And through countless generations, simple reflexes became nerves, and nerves became minds. In a sense, the roots of human consciousness can be traced all the way back to the Cambrian seas. We are, quite literally, descendants of that explosion, yet even explosions fade. As the Cambrian period ended around 485 million years ago, some species vanished, while others gave rise to new lineages. The world continued to evolve. Fish took over the seas, plants colonized land, and eventually animals crawled onto the shore. But the echoes of the Cambrian never disappeared. They remain written in our DNA, etched into the structure of every living thing. When you look at your hands, your eyes, your heartbeat, you're witnessing the legacy of an ancient evolutionary dawn. The Cambrian explosion was not just the rise of animals, yet it was the rise of complexity itself. The Cambrian explosion teaches us something profound, and that life can remain simple for eons, and then suddenly transform. It reminds us that change often hides in plain sight, slow, silent, and invisible, until the right moment arrives, and when it does, it reshapes everything. From the first spark of multicellular life to the mind that contemplates it, the story of the Cambrian is our story, a tale of survival, innovation, and endless possibility. Even today, scientists continue to uncover new fossils, each one whispering secrets from a forgotten world. Every discovery connects another thread, showing how chaos can give rise to order, and how simplicity can bloom into unimaginable complexity. Over 500 million years ago, in the quiet depths of ancient oceans, life looked at itself and began to change. That moment, the Cambrian explosion, wasn't just an event in history. It was the birth of every creature, every instinct, every dream that would ever follow. From those tiny seas came the heartbeat of all creation. The Big Bang of animal life was more than evolution. It was the awakening of life's imagination. And if you listen closely, in every breath, in every living thing, you can still hear its echo, the whisper of the Cambrian. For billions of years, Earth was a silent world. No birds sang, no insects buzzed, no fish swam beneath the waves. Only the whisper of wind and the soft pulse of tides filled the emptiness. It's almost impossible for us, creatures of a teeming, noisy planet, to imagine a time when life existed only as a faint film clinging to stone. But that's what Earth looked like before the Cambrian explosion, a world where life was invisible, microscopic, and humble. The first spark of existence began more than 3.5 billion years ago in the warm mineral-rich seas of a young planet. Single-celled bacteria were the pioneers, living off sunlight and chemicals, shaping the environment molecule by molecule. Over eons, these tiny architects transformed the atmosphere itself. By around 2.4 billion years ago, the great oxidation event changed everything. Cyanobacteria began releasing oxygen as a byproduct of photosynthesis, a revolution that turned the sky blue and set the stage for complex life. But oxygen was a double-edged sword. For early microbes, it was poison. Entire ecosystems vanished in this slow-motion catastrophe. Yet from that destruction, opportunity was born. Oxygen became the fuel for energy-hungry cells, eukaryotes with nuclei and mitochondria. These were the ancestors of plants, fungi, and animals. By 600 million years ago, during the Ediacaran period, Earth was dotted with strange, ghost-like creatures. They were the first multicellular organisms, soft-bodied, quilt-patterned beings that looked more like alien jelly or pressed leaves than true animals. Some floated in the water, others lay on the ocean floor absorbing nutrients through their skin. But they lacked something crucial, the ability to move with purpose. They had no eyes, no mouths, no predators, and no need to run or fight. Then something changed. Geological records show that by the end of the Ediacaran, these creatures disappeared almost entirely. Fossils fade from the record, as if nature wiped the slate clean. What followed was unlike anything before or since. In a span of just 20 to 25 million years, life went from simple to spectacular. This was the Cambrian Explosion, the biological Big Bang, the moment when the silence of Earth broke into symphony. It began around 541 million years ago, in oceans that shimmered with light. The continents were still drifting across a young world, and the air carried more carbon dioxide than today. The sea was everything, the cradle of life, the frontier of evolution. Then suddenly the fossil record comes alive. Where once there had been only microbial mats and soft-bodied forms, now we see skeletons, shells, claws, teeth, and eyes. This is the Cambrian period, a geological era that redefined what it meant to be alive. Within mere geological moments, almost every major animal group we know today, the phyla, appeared. Arthropods, mollusks, annelids, echinoderms, and chordates. These are the ancestors of crabs, worms, starfish, and even humans. It's hard to overstate the scale of this transformation. Imagine nature suddenly discovering the blueprint for all future bodies, and then experimenting wildly. In sites like the Burgess Shale in Canada, Zhejiang in China, and Sirius Passet in Greenland, paleontologists have uncovered fossil treasures from this era. The mudstones of these regions are like time capsules, preserving soft tissues, eyes, and even guts of creatures that once ruled the Cambrian seas. Among them are some of the strangest animals ever known. Anomalocaris, a predator over a meter long, armed with grasping claws and a circular mouth like a pineapple ring lined with teeth. Its compound eyes had over 16,000 lenses, giving it vision sharper than modern dragonflies. Hallucigenia, a tiny worm-like creature walking on stilts of spines, its mouth ringed with teeth. Opabinia, with 5 eyes and a flexible clawed trunk to snatch prey, a creature so bizarre that early scientists thought it was a joke. Wiwaxia, covered in gleaming armor plates and blade-like scales. And of course, the iconic Trilobites, among the first animals to develop mineralized exoskeletons, thriving for nearly 300 million years. These creatures formed the first complex marine ecosystems, predator and prey, hunter and hunted. Evolution had entered a feedback loop. Eyes led to armor, armor led to weapons, weapons led to speed. This was nature's first arms race. For the first time, life moved with intent, seeing, sensing, reacting. It was not just biology anymore. It was behavior. Scientists have puzzled for decades over why the Cambrian explosion happened when it did. If multicellular life had existed for millions of years, why did it suddenly burst into diversity? The answer isn't one cause, but a perfect storm of events, geological, chemical, and biological, all converging at once. Oxygen levels in the oceans rose dramatically just before the Cambrian. This increase allowed animals to grow larger and more active. Muscles, movement, and metabolisms depend on oxygen, and once it became abundant, life could afford complexity. Around 650 million years ago, Earth had been encased in ice, a snowball Earth. When the ice melted, torrents of nutrients flowed into the seas, phosphorus, calcium, and carbon, fueling algae blooms and new food webs. The oceans became rich with life's raw materials. Within the DNA of early animals, a revolutionary toolkit emerged, Hox genes. These master genes controlled body structure, deciding where a head, tail, or limb should form. With this system, evolution could rearrange, duplicate, and experiment rapidly. Nature was no longer guessing, it was designing. Once predators evolved, prey needed defenses, shells, spikes, camouflage, speed. Every adaptation spurred another in response. This back-and-forth battle drove evolution faster than ever before. As animals began burrowing, crawling, and swimming, they disturbed sediments, mixed nutrients, and reshaped the seafloor. New habitats emerged, and with them new opportunities for evolution. Geochemical data shows a surge of calcium in seawater during this time. Calcium carbonate became the building block of shells and skeletons, nature's first armor. Once a creature evolved a shell, it gained both defense and structure. Together, these factors lit the fuse of the Cambrian explosion. The oceans became arenas of innovation. Evolution accelerated into overdrive. It was as if life had suddenly discovered creativity. If we could dive into the Cambrian seas, we'd enter a world both alien and familiar. The continents were clustered in the southern hemisphere, covered in shallow oceans that teemed with life. There were no plants or animals on land, just barren rock and microbial mats along the coasts. But below the waves, color and chaos reigned. Forests of algae swayed in the currents. Trilobites scuttled along the seafloor, their faceted eyes scanning for danger. Strange worms tunneled through the mud, churning the sediments like early engineers of the ecosystem. Above them glided swift predators, Anomalocaris ruling the waters like sharks, ambushing soft-bodied prey. Tiny filter feeders drew nutrients from plankton clouds. Every niche, every strategy was being tested for the first time. The Cambrian oceans were full of innovation. Eyes evolved independently several times, an extraordinary leap in evolution. With sight came strategy, communication, and fear. The seafloor, once static, now pulsed with energy. Creatures digging, hunting, hiding. It was the birth of the food chain, the first dance of interdependence that still defines our world today. And while it may look alien, everything we know about animal life, from movement to sensory systems, began here. The Cambrian world was not merely the stage of evolution, it was evolution's laboratory. Here nature tested every idea it could imagine. Some survived, most vanished. But from the chaos emerged order, the foundation of all animal life, deep. In the Canadian Rockies lies a place where time forgot to erase its traces in the Burgess Shale, hidden. Among the shale layers of the Yoho National Park, this ancient quarry is a time capsule, preserving the soft bodies of creatures that lived over 508 million years ago. Unlike ordinary fossils, these are not just bones or shells. They are entire bodies, eyes, legs, guts, and even nerve cords, frozen in time by a stroke of geological luck. It all began in 1909, when the paleontologist Charles Doolittle Walcott stumbled upon these strange remains. What he found would rewrite the story of life. Layer after layer revealed a riot of forms, delicate creatures with spiny legs, translucent shells, and multiple pairs of eyes. Walcott couldn't believe that such alien creatures once thrived on Earth. He carefully packed thousands of specimens, but their true importance wouldn't be realized for another half-century. When modern scientists revisited the Burgess Shale in the late 20th century, equipped with new imaging technologies and evolutionary theories, they uncovered something astonishing. Most of the Burgess creatures didn't fit neatly into any known animal group. It was as if evolution had gone wild, experimenting with body plans, some successful, others dead ends. Take Anomalocaris, the abnormal shrimp, a predator the size of a cat with spiked feeding arms and eyes that could see in high resolution. Or Hallucigenia, a bizarre worm with spines on its back and legs sprouting from its sides, so strange that scientists initially reconstructed it upside down. And then there's Opabinia, a five-eyed creature with a long vacuum-like proboscis, one of evolution's weirdest experiments. The Burgess Shale was not the only window into this world. Similar fossil beds, the Chengjiang Formation in China, the Sirius Passet in Greenland and others, told the same story, a sudden appearance of complex life bursting with variety and innovation. Each fossil site added more species, more body plans, more evidence that something extraordinary happened during the Cambrian period. These fossils show that life didn't just crawl out of the Precambrian darkness, it exploded into being. Soft tissues, rare in the fossil record, gave scientists clues about internal organs, sensory systems, and behaviors. Microscopic fossils showed early nervous systems, eyes, and even circulatory patterns. For the first time, Earth was not only inhabited but aware. Each fossil is a whisper from an ancient sea, a record of trial and error. The Burgess Shale tells us that evolution is not a straight line. It's a sprawling tree, full of branches that sprout, wither, and vanish. Most Cambrian species are gone, but their experiments paved the way for everything that followed, including us. The Cambrian Explosion wasn't just a biological event, it was an evolutionary revolution. Before this period, life was microscopic, hidden, and simple. After it, the planet teemed with ecosystems of hunters and prey, burrowers and swimmers, grazers and filter feeders. It was the first time that ecology, the web of life, truly began. The new forms of life developed tools that would define biology forever. Skeletons and shells appeared, protecting delicate bodies from predators. Eyes and sensory organs evolved, creating a new relationship between hunter and hunted. Legs and fins allowed animals to move through new environments, seafloors, reefs, and open waters. And the most important tool of all, brains, began to develop complexity. Predation changed everything. Before, life passively filtered nutrients. Now creatures stalked and killed one another, an evolutionary arms race that drove rapid adaptation. Prey developed armor and camouflage. Predators developed speed and intelligence. This dynamic still drives evolution today. The Cambrian seas became laboratories of competition and innovation. Small trilobites scurried across the mud. Worm-like creatures tunneled beneath. Floating jelly-like forms drifted in the currents. Coral-like sponges built miniature reefs. Every ecological role that exists in modern oceans, scavenger, predator, prey, had its prototype here. One of the most important legacies of the Cambrian explosion is modularity, the idea that body parts could evolve independently and be reused in new ways. The same genetic toolkit that built the spines of an ancient worm would later build the limbs of a crab, the wings of a bird, or the hands of a human. These are the Hox genes, master architects of body plans, which arose during or before the Cambrian. In that sense, the Cambrian explosion was not a one-time miracle. It was the foundation of all complex life that followed. The evolutionary blueprints established then are still at work today. shaping everything from insects to mammals. Every creature you see, a butterfly, a fish, even yourself, carries within its DNA the echoes of that great burst of innovation 500 million years ago. We are the children of the Cambrian. But like all great chapters in Earth's history, the Cambrian world did not last forever. As continents drifted and climates shifted, many of its species vanished. The end of the Cambrian was marked by several extinction events, each wiping out large portions of life. One major crisis, known as the Dresbachian extinction, occurred around 485 million years ago. The seas warmed and cooled unpredictably. Oxygen levels fluctuated. Many of the strange early animals disappeared. Only the hardiest survived into the Ordovician period, where life would rise again in new forms. Yet extinction is not merely an ending, it's a transformation. The animals that made it through adapted, evolved, and laid the groundwork for the next wave of diversification. The trilobites persisted, diversifying into hundreds of species. Simple worms evolved into more advanced arthropods. Tiny jawless fish appeared, setting the stage for the age of vertebrates. The echoes of the Cambrian can be seen in every later explosion of life: the Ordovician radiation, the Devonian fish age, the Carboniferous forests, even the Mesozoic dinosaurs. Each of these evolutionary leaps owes something to that first great spark of creativity in the Cambrian seas. The Cambrian explosion also changed how Earth itself functioned. With animals burrowing and stirring up the seafloor, the planet's chemistry shifted. Nutrients circulated differently. Carbon began to lock into sediments. The ocean became more oxygenated. In short, life began to engineer the planet, shaping the environment to sustain more life. And in that grand process, extinction and evolution were partners, not enemies. The Cambrian explosion showed that creativity often arises from instability, from crisis and change. The disappearance of one form of life opened the door for another to evolve. The Cambrian explosion is not just an ancient mystery, it's a mirror. It reflects how fragile yet resilient life can be. 500 million years ago, life faced challenges of climate, chemistry, and catastrophe. Yet from those challenges came complexity, beauty, and awareness. Today we face our own environmental upheavals, our own extinctions. The Cambrian record reminds us that while life endures, it also transforms, and not always in our favor. When we look at the Burgess Shale or the fossils of Chengjiang, we are looking at our ancestors' first triumphs, the moment life discovered how to see, move, and think. Those ancient seas are gone, but the descendants of their inhabitants swim in our oceans, crawl on our land, and even build our cities. Science continues to uncover more pieces of this grand puzzle. New fossil sites reveal previously unknown species, each adding another thread to the tapestry of life's history. And new genetic research shows that the same developmental pathways that shaped Cambrian animals still operate in us. In a sense, the Cambrian explosion never really ended. It lives on in every heartbeat, every breath, every movement of every living thing. As the sunlight glitters on the waves of today's oceans, it's worth remembering once long ago, those same waters were the cradle of imagination. The Cambrian explosion was life's first great experiment, a test that changed the world forever. And from that moment forward, Earth was never the same again.